I dialed 911 a long time ago.
Chris Brogan will speak for Crackers and Cheese Whiz.
I will. I will. Um, hey, I just saw the apropos of nothing. I just saw the TV miniseries, The Mayor of Easttown. It's Cody Wooten's fault. He told me you should check out this miniseries. It's amazing, and it's about this small town murder mystery. You'd like it because like murder mystery, kind of whodunit sort
And
of a
small
thing.
town, like where I grew up.
Yeah, and Kate Winslet and several other British people go there and do this like incredible hard Philadelphia suburbs, like Pennsylvania, middle Pennsylvania accent.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a scene. This is what we're going with the cheese whiz. Squeeze cheese in a can. She pops the lid off it with her mouth. She like and then starts spraying on the cracker. And that was her like ad lib. She said that's how my character would probably open that.
She's wicked classy, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Mayor of Easttown. It is totally worth seeing. It's on HBO Max. That's what our show is. We do reviews of TV shows on various streaming channels. Patrick Short is here as well. Kerry, we have a vaunted guest. I couldn't be happier. This is Monday and I feel happy.
That's unusual.
I know. How'd that happen?
So we have Rob Barnett. He's a headhunter, author, management executive, podcaster, all the things. And he's going to talk about how you can get the job you want. He's got a brand new book out, so we're going to talk about that too. But if you've been dreaming about a job, thinking maybe you don't have what it takes to go for it, he's going to tell you how to get it.
We're going places today.
Hi, everyone. Tim Kitzrow from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, welcoming you to The Backpack Show. Your hosts, Chris Brogan, Kerry Gorgone, Boom Shakalaka.
Backpack Show.
I'm super excited about this.
You know how there's a feline in my house that I wish weren't here?
Sure do.
I just heard. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to talk to Rob. And then after clean up some biological entity off the floor.
Just leave the door open. Cats run away all the time. The world's an imperfect place.
Cats suck. Oh my God, cats suck. I fed it like something. It had this incredible name. The like when you go to a restaurant, it's like Chipotle dusted something, crusted something food.
Do.
That's what the cat food said, not Chipotle or something. But it had like 9 words, so it had to be good.
You're saying there's a feline invasion?
Whoop, whoop, whoop. Feline invasion. I repeat, we have a feline invasion. Chris, hold very still. Do not turn your head. For the love of Pete, don't turn your head. Oh, the humanity.
I think Rob needs to save us.
From ourselves.
Yeah, Rob Barnett is going to save us from that and having to clean cat.
The reason I was extra interested in talking to Rob today, and you should bring him out, is because a lot of women don't apply for jobs that they are fully qualified for because they see like one thing on a list of 150 things and think, I'm not sure I'm qualified for that job or something. Whereas a guy will see like one thing on a list of 150 things and he knows to do one thing and he'll be like, I could totally do this job.
There's a stat I heard that I've over the years probably massaged into absolute inaccuracy, but it's like women could be 94% qualified and not apply, and a man could be 11% qualified and apply. And whether or not that's true or not, that's the stat I'm going to quote. So I'm going to bring Rob out and let's ask him that question. Even vaguely close? Not really, huh?
It's a great question. It's a great point. It really is. I find that no matter who you are, if you're not checking most of those boxes, you're not getting interviewed. It's just, you can go for it with all the machismo in the world, but if you don't line up, I don't think you're getting the shot.
Even male, female, do you find that women are just not putting in for jobs that they would check the boxes for, or like does that skew at all one way or the other in your experience?
Well, I've been on a mission this last year or so to just get people to stop rando applying to jobs completely. No more cold uploads, no more, hey, here's my resume. I feel like you got to play Sopranos. You got to get somebody, excuse me, to vouch for you and open that door and make it happen and say, do me a favor, talk to Kerry. You got to have that.
How did you discover that for yourself?
Well, this whole journey for me as Headhunter boy was a complete accident to
Headhunter boy.
begin with. I mean, this was not in the playbook. I mean, if you glance at my ancient journeys on LinkedIn, I was on a path to try to make great stuff in radio and TV and film and video and all the rest of it. And then, like a lot of my friends, I hit this crazy moment about 3 or 4 years ago. I got stuck. I got badly stuck, and and all my wonderful outreach just wasn't working. I was being told I was overqualified or to this or to that. I used to call it the two police. Here they come, the TOO police marching in to bum me out with another outreach. And so one morning in a fit of utter frustration, I grabbed my iPhone and made a short little video about my predicament. And I said that this was not unique. There were hundreds of my friends stuck in the same boat. And why don't we at least put our heads together and start talking about this? And I uploaded it to just two places, LinkedIn and Facebook, about 9 o'clock in the morning. And for the first time in my life, I had a video that had way too many comments and way too many views. And so I looked at that and only had one idea at that point was, well, I better do another one and do another one. So I kept coming every morning like clockwork at 9 a.m. And then after about 9 or 10 of these, a guy called and said, listen, I met you at MTV 100 years ago. I need a chief operating officer. Is that what this is? You're a headhunter, right? I said, yes.
Totally.
Yes, I am. That's what I am. And that's how it started about 3 years ago.
Now, can we thumbnail just a tiny bit of that ancient history? Can you walk people through just a tiny bit of your bona fides here so that they can understand who we're talking to today?
Well, I start as a rock and roll addict and a freaking DJ, but a DJ back at the time when you could pull one of these, play whatever you want, and say whatever you want without getting fired.
Right.
It was really fun when I did rock radio for about 10 years. Then it got unfun, and I moved over to MTV, who celebrated, scary to say out loud, their 40th birthday yesterday. I wasn't there for 40 years, but I was there for 12 of the good years at MTV and at VH1, when there was a hell of a lot of rock and roll and freedom and insanity going on there. That was a great run. I got back into radio. Depending on how you look at it, I was both the president of CBS Radio and the unlucky schmuck who had to work for Les Moonves, may he rest in hell. And I also had this little task. I had to replace Howard Stern when he quit radio. Went to
That was it. That's
that
all.
old thing.
So I've got scars all over my back from those years. And then in 2006, when YouTube is still a baby in diapers, I had this little idea. We called it My Damn Channel. We ran this for 10 years, making original series, comedy and music, about 5 or 6 years before Netflix and Amazon started making series. So we were, in that group of about 100 companies that thought we had an idea that would someday turn into, what's it called? Oh yeah, big bags of money. It didn't, but it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. And we had hundreds of people working for us for 10 years. We ran that sucker. And then let's see, then what happens? Then I'm almost done with my 400 years.
Audible.
I worked at Audible in 2017. That had some good and some bad, but I worked with a man with a book, and the man with a book is your president, Joe Biden. And they put me in charge of marketing that book because for the first time in his life, he got a big check. They hired him for a 3-book deal and said, you're in charge, go figure out how to market that. And that was a life-changing experience working with our president, whose book was about nothing shorter than turning horrible pain into life purpose. And that inspired the hell out of me. But then they fired me. Then they had a, say it with me, restructuring at Audible. And I was, say it with me, eliminated.
Made redundant, as the Brits would say.
Yeah, so that's my weird ass journey, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been up and down and up and down, but now it's no more me. It's about how can I help somebody get the job that they want to get with hopefully a little less pain and suffering.
We have a lot to cover in your books, but I need a little bit more Rob Barnett Cheeto dust on my fingers. I don't feel like I've eaten enough. Okay. I need to put a little yellow highlighter on this. Johnny Rotten, RuPaul, Bruce Springsteen, you did work. Like, you worked with some cool dudes. And like, I'm trying to think, there was another highlight in your career that I also thought was kind of cool. I mean, you've touched
replacing Howard Stern.
Well, I mean, that's
See, I feel like in a way that'd be the best, because no matter what you do, they're gonna be like, well,
yeah,
not as bad
whatever.
as that.
It's not Stern.
Well, I had this singular idea as a kid. You know, the idea was that if these are the most inspiring people in the world, and I worship the work and the art that they create, then I just wanted to work for them, you know, with them. And that was always my journey. I just felt like in show business, just like any other business, the suits usually suck. And I felt like my mission was to get in there and somehow protect these artists from the suits. And that actually became the idea of My Damn Channel. We hired A-list talent and gave them no notes, and we gave them money. We didn't say rev share. We said, we're going to pay you a lot of money, and since we've hired you to be great, we're going to ask you to be great, and we're not going to rewrite your comedy. We're not going to ask you to be funnier. We're just going to take your stuff and say thanks.
Oh, that's like
so that
perfect
was
for
always the
the
mission
Chris
with
Brogan.
talent, you know. Say again.
So that's perfect for the Chris Brogan. Here's a bag of money. Go do you.
Go do what you do. Right? Because hiring is the big decision, right? And then if you hire somebody, protect them.
Right. Clear the way so that they have the opportunity to execute in the way that you kind of assume they would once you hired them.
And guess what? They might actually make a few mistakes, and then you don't have to kill them.
There's a lot to you. We're looking
almost
through.
guaranteed.
One thought I wanted to talk about. I want to talk about the book, of course. And I mean, we have so much we want to talk about. There's people here who are in between jobs, looking for jobs, thinking about things and all that. But putting this down into a book is a really different experience than all you've done. You've done so much execution. You've done so much bringing other people's stuff out. You've developed a lot of other people. It's different when it's your human skull on the box. It's different when it's you having to like really stand up for your ideas and all that. And I imagine partly the podcast hosting got you there, but like, how do you feel now that you've made that pivot into you're in the front row, not the back row?
I honestly have to say, and I know, Chris, that you've done what, 9 and 10 technically.
10 on the way.
It was the hardest. I swear to you, I've done a lot of stuff. I've done a lot of television. I've done film. This was the hardest thing to do. And it would have been impossible had I not found a magician named Lisa Fitzpatrick. I found someone, I didn't even know what these words meant till I learned them, a developmental editor, a person with the chops and the experience to be able to really care about me enough to take these ideas and help me understand the structure of a book. I had no idea how to do that, let alone edit it so that the ideas that make sense only in my mind end up making sense in your minds. She was just invaluable. I recommend her to anybody who's never written a book as this first superhero that you would need to teach you structure. And it was tremendous. And then it was a COVID survival mission, honestly. My way of not losing my mind was that we woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning every single morning and wrote till about 8, before starting our other lives and our other jobs. And
You're
it was
saying we like there's
tremendously
more
hard.
people
It really
involved.
was. I was naive as to how hard it was, but I think most first-time authors probably say that. I
But
don't
when you
know.
say we, it's you. Like you're doing it. Just you.
Yeah, I wrote it, but she helped me so much.
So yeah, that's big picture major surgery type stuff. The developmental editing is like just gut the whole thing and rework it and move things around and all that kind of stuff. Definitely valuable. So what are people doing wrong? Like if there was one simple thing that you could get people to stop doing that would lead to their greater success, what would it be?
The one thing most people do wrong is there's a belief that if I can show you 3 or 4 or 5 potential jobs that I can fill at the top of my LinkedIn, I call it butcher, baker, candlestick maker. In that idea, I've increased my odds threefold by saying I'm a writer, a producer, an editor, a development, a shoe salesman, and people are afraid that if they do the one thing we advise in the book, which is to pick the one thing, tell me exactly who you are. People are afraid that if they do that, they've hurt their odds, right? Well, I could have been a roofer and a backpacker and a baker. I could have done all these things. I just know that a company is interested at that moment when the roof is leaking. They need a roofer. They don't need anybody else. And the person that's going to get hired is the person that looks the most like the specialist and the least like a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, that's my whole career. You just summed up, Rob. You just summed up, and it's utterly true. It took all the way to the pandemic. It took all the way to, I'm 51. It took all this time to come and land on that opinion. And I'm still not there. There's still some hyphens in my LinkedIn profile. But as I'm listening to you, I'm hearing you and I'm feeling it. And in my world, when I'm starting to look out for talent and I'm trying to collect people for this organization that I'm helping out, I really don't want a multi-hyphenate person. I spent my whole life doing that. How do Johnny Rotten? I just keep coming back to Johnny Rotten in my head.
Let's talk about him.
Anger is an energy, like pill.
I love John Lydon. I love him. In his new book, which is called Anger is an Energy, I get one line. The line says, Rob Barnett was very good fun. and so it's the let's see, it's the mid 90s, let's say, roughly. I know that's the decade. And a friend of mine is working with John and asks if I want to meet him. And I said, more than anything. And at the time, I'm working at VH1 and we go out to some meal. A meal with John involves lots of drinks, more drinks than you can possibly imagine, lots of food, and many, many, many hours. And I had a mission at that meeting, not just to meet him. I thought I'd like to talk him into hosting his first ever television show. That would be a good idea. And so I can't remember how many years it took, but let's just say it might have taken a couple of years and $80 zillion in what used to be called expenses when companies gave you these big expense reports. And I talked him into doing a show that we created together with my friend George Gimmark, and we simply called it Rotten Television. And we took the piss out of everything for a few years. Brilliant madman, a brilliant madman. Here's one thing John taught me, which is so funny because here I am humping a book, right? And interviewing and saying, yeah, get my book. John once said that if you want to get the most press ever, turn down all interviews. Every time there's an interview request, say no, and say no over a long period of time, so that when you finally say yes, it's news.
Some real JD Salinger shit right there. Yep, I get it. Oh my gosh, Rob, we have like 8,004 questions, but we also have 6 ads. So I'm gonna stick you
Let's
backstage.
do ads.
All right, pee if you have to. Catch you in 60 seconds.
He probably could have helped us.
Help us pee? I missed it. Oh, read the
No,
ads?
we'll just do
Oh,
the ads, you
yeah.
weirdo.
Yeah, that would have been
You're
awkward.
very good fun.
Rob is? Oh my gosh.
No,
me.
you are.
Oh,
Saying
me?
okay in my
Yeah.
book is very good
You know,
fun.
so much so you could have a show. Hey, would you like to have your own video show? You could have
Sure
one. It's
would.
StreamYard. You can make a show this easy. See Brogan.me/StreamYard. It is kick-ass. John Rotten could make Rotten Television in 5.5 minutes. Doesn't even need an expense report. Hey, would you like a podcast? You could have one. And if you want a podcast, there's a great host out there now, castos.com. Castos is super easy to set up. I've used the #1 competitor in the world of theirs for 15 or more years. And then I just went over to Castos, like, boop, boop. Oh, it's set up. And then I was suddenly up and running again.
Oh, yeah. It was a process the old way. It's so much easier using castos.com. They host your podcast files and syndicate them all the places for you.
Yeah. Hey, what would you like to do with a .online domain? Think about rotten.online. So you
can have one for just
Really?
$1 if you use the code Chris, all caps, when you get your .online domain.
Yeah, type my whole name out. Hey, we're sticking it to the man. You don't need to Google anymore. You can use presearch.com. Presearch.com is a competitor to Google, and it was made by a guy, Colin Pape, who is getting smeared by Google and crushed in the. This is basically just switch to presearch.com. You'll like it.
Just switch. Don't forget to log in because you get crypto rewards.
I just looked up Johnny Lydon's book on it, and it just popped right up, and I forgot to log in, so I didn't get any rewards. My friend Mitch Jackson was very kind enough to sponsor the show, and he hadn't seen our reads before, so he thought I was going to do this other kind of read. But look, you can go to streaming.lawyer. Mitch is California's #1 leading trial attorney. If you're stuck in any way in California, this is your guy. He is such a go-to guy. But more so, he also has all this cool bleeding edge media technology and skill and knowledge. He's like the kind of guy who had Google Glass the first week. He's had drones. He's had all this stuff way ahead of everybody else. When everybody's just figuring out the metaverse, Mitch is going to be there streaming.
And that's like regular people, never mind lawyers. Like lawyers are like a solid decade behind.
That's right. Oh my gosh. They still have like adding machines.
So he's ahead of all of them.
Maybe an abacus. Let's grab us a Rob Barnett. We still have so many questions, I think. I got it. Okay. So let's clean up a LinkedIn profile or two, Rob. What are people putting in there?
Show him your LinkedIn profile, Chris.
No.
Oh my God. You want me to? I can perform one.
It'll be great.
I have 18 years of experience and a proven track record of success with a demonstrated history of oral and written communications skills. I have that.
Well done and accurate. People write them now? People write them as if it's like a deposition or something.
I'll go get your LinkedIn, Chris. I'll do it.
Don't do it. What's your big advice?
Write like a human being. Don't copy everyone else's crap ass LinkedIn and everyone's resume. And here's another one. Don't assume that by dropping in 17 buzzwords like algorithm that you're going to be found by a robot, and moved from resume 879 in the pile up to resume 147. People are obsessed with writing everyone else's version of a resume and a cover letter. I want people to sound like who they are. In that about section, I think you should believe that you are interviewing for that job and speaking directly to the person who's going to hire you. Talk to them, be who you are, and really work on replacing every generic idea with the most specific, powerful accomplishments that you've got. Nobody wants to know that you coordinate with other departments and that you're a liaison to sales and that you're in meetings. People want to actually know what you've done in the most succinct bullet points possible. You've got to show the proof that you've accomplished something, and there's just no reason to talk about the table stakes.
Is it possible to go too far the other way and have too much detail, like how big a budget you managed, or like how much is too much? What's the fine
I've got a
balance?
little mathematical theory on it. My theory is that if you've worked at a place for, say, 6 years, split that in half. Give me 3 of the standout achievements you've done there, just 3. Keep it real tight, because that's the other thing. How do you feel when you open up an email from someone and it's 17 pages long? You've got to keep it tight. You've got to be succinct. People will give you, if you're lucky, 20, 25 seconds to glance at your resume and your LinkedIn. So you've got to really keep it short.
One of the things I was thinking of while you were talking about being overqualified and all the things people would say, that sounds a lot like ageism. It's like veiled ageism. Like, oh, you've got too much experience for this role. We just need someone who's just starting out.
Definitely can be a code word for it. I played a game. I can't remember. Today might be video number 830 or something like that. I might have went 100 videos before I wanted to even say the word ageism, because I thought that if I said the word, I'd be giving this devil power that I didn't want to give it. I feel like the main antidote to ageism is fabulousness. but if it does exist, if it is out there, then you've got to just outwork every other candidate. I find that the mistake so many people make in cover letters, and I'm as guilty of this as anyone in the past, people are concentrating on writing all of their greatest hits. And I did this, and I did that, and I was this, and I was that. The cover letter needs to be more about the company than it does about yourself. If you actually proved that you've done more homework than anyone else, that you've offered, without being asked, more valuable ideas than anyone else, then maybe in that case, if you're older than the average bear, you're actually proving that you've got value that you're willing to bring to the table from minute one. A lot of people who've got these great ancient careers are just writing their greatest hits, and that's not as important as what the company needs you to do to make cash money in the moment.
I have 2 things. One quick one, just to satisfy my curiosity. Do you get the Left Sets letter? Do you get Bob Leftset's newsletter?
It's funny that you asked that. There have been years where I did,
Yep.
and then I just felt like I can't commit the time.
Right,
I can't commit the time. It's too much.
To
But
me,
but
he's
I
a box of
have
chocolates.
loved it in the past.
I eat a few and I delete a few. I eat a few, I delete a few. I just was
Yeah,
curious. I figured you
yeah.
might go for it. You've pitched or I have for a question though. You've pitched a lot of shows. You've put a lot of shows on. My damn channel is a work. It is a piece of material. There's all these things you've done where you've understood what it takes to be a showrunner, what it takes to pitch a show. What translates into that to bringing someone's career? If Deb Lee shows up and decides she wants the next big VP job, how does she pitch herself the way she pitches a show? Or is that horrible advice?
No, that's great. That's a great point. It's a really great point. You've got to learn to be very psychic in a room when you're pitching. You've got to read the room. You've got to be able to, when you're pitching a show, you go in there with a log line, and you get to look at faces if you're lucky. Remember in the old days when we used to like be together and
Vaguely?
before video. But even on video, right? You've got to read a room and be able to understand whether the content that you're putting out is resonating and getting a response, and if not, then you need to calibrate. But I'll tell you something, Chris, the thing that we recommend, chapter 9 of the book is comically called The Perfect 30-Minute Interview, and there's probably about, I don't know, hopefully 20 or 30 tips in there about how to interview for a job. The best one, if I could just say one, no matter how experienced you are, if you've got a big job interview, you ought to be rehearsing for it like a Broadway play. You ought to be calling not just a friend, but a friend who knows you professionally, and saying, can you do me a favor? I've got this interview Wednesday morning at 10. Can we spend about an hour on Tuesday grilling me, getting me ready for this, listening to my answers and calling bullshit? I think that the interview is really the beginning of whether or not you've even got a shot, and people just wing it. I think you got to rehearse.
So just winging it works for some people, a little bit better than it does for other people. So what do you say to people whose like strength lies in winging it, or at least their perceived strength lies in winging it? How do you convince them to practice a little bit?
Well, it all comes back to intention. How much do you want it, right? I mean, it sounds like, I don't know. Are you talking about your co-host over there? You're talking about that guy?
What? No. By the way, he would not work for other people. He works for himself.
It depends
so.
how much you want it, man. If you think that going into this interview for a whatever is going to be an important game-changing moment in your life, then winging it may not always produce the greatest results.
So you want to look spontaneous, not be spontaneous.
There you have it. See, like you said.
Everything is wrong. It's like that Cigarettes and Chocolate Milk by Rufus Wainwright, where he says that everything I like is a little bit deadly, a little bit fat or whatever. Everything he likes is, the wrong thing.
Well, you're an entrepreneur. It makes sense.
Well, I'm an entrepreneur who has one client right now. I'm essentially an almost employee. So, I mean, what do I know? But the whole idea, I mean, there's this longstanding story I like to use as kind of an example of this, is that the reason the Beach Boys won't get together ever again is that there's a fight between Brian and the rest of the band, where the band just wants to play the hits, because what does anyone want to see at the Beach Boys? They want to hear Good Vibrations. They want to hear California Dreaming. They want not California Dreaming, the other one. They want to hear all Beach Boys songs. Surf USA. What does he want to play? Is he wants to play all the crazy experimental stuff, from the last album, and stuff that hasn't even been on stage yet. And they're like, no one wants that. So they're never going to get together, because that fight's always going to be on. When I listen to you, you're saying, you should be prepped. One question is, and again, the breadth of the material that you've worked on, and the fact that you're saying you've got to just have this one thing you say you've done. I want a cheat code here. I want to know, like, is there a best possible one thing? I mean, obviously, if you're trying for a job as a president of a company, you probably want to highlight all your president of a company things. But is there one thing I want people to think about me more than any other thing I want them to think about me? Can I angle my stuff?
See, there's an if, Chris. There's a big if that has to start the answer to the biggest question ever. I was only shocked and surprised by one thing when I started as a headhunter. I thought that I'm 61. So I thought that if people had gotten into their late 30s, 40s, and 50s, maybe they'd had enough nonsense, enough bad actors, enough bad bosses to say, screw it, I'm going to figure out this entrepreneur thing. I thought on day one in my headhunter life that maybe out of the thousands of people that come in the door, maybe there'd be, 15% that thought it's time to go out on my own and be my own boss. It's turned out in my little scientific experiment that, having talked now to thousands and thousands of job seekers for almost 4 years, there's this teeny tiny, maybe 1% of the people that are interested in going out there and doing it on their own. Therefore, if you need to get hired in a job working for somebody else, that's where our chapter called the North Star comes into play. That's where they need to know who they're hiring, right? What is this role? A lot of people call me. I had a lady, God bless her, as they say in Texas, bless her heart. Friday morning, this woman called me so freaking angry, so hurt, so wrecked. And what was hurting her more than anything is that she knew in her soul that she could be this person. Why can't they see it? Why don't they see it? And the answer, sadly, was that her resume and her LinkedIn was shit. It was all over the place. It was a little of this, a little of that, a little of a third thing, a little of a fourth thing. And I had to just calmly try to help her as much as I possibly could to say, hone it. And like you said earlier, Chris, maybe there's still going to be one or two slashes in there for people. Maybe there's a couple of things, but without that focus, even I'll say one last thing. Even your friends, the people who love you the most, will have an easier time helping you get a job the minute you tell them what the job is. But if you say, hey, you love me, I'm on my ass, I'm looking, so just keep me in mind if you hear of anything, that's not helpful enough, to your friends.
No. And that sounds like social voodoo. That sounds like what you were getting at in that chapter about, how do you help people help you? And I get that all the time. I endlessly get an email from someone saying, I'm looking, and I'm always thinking,
anything? Yeah.
What am I, LinkedIn? No, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
So that's tricky. Also tricky, I found out, rocking a rhyme. It's tricky. So listen, we are at a spot in the show where we have to do this kind of a thing.
Oh, and here's our person of the day. Kaboom!
I don't know if we've given it to Leslie lately. Leslie said, I'd much rather a genuine human cover letter than the cookie cutter cover letter. And also, have a great day, Elizabeth. Congratulations.
We're upset Elizabeth had to go to a morning meeting.
Yeah, she keeps somehow prioritizing a meeting over us. I think you should help her find a new job. Hey, we ask every guest who's ever been here, from Sir Mix-a-Lot to Sister Anne Flanagan to financial dominatrix Mistress Harley, the same question: what goes in your backpack? Now, this is, for success for the next coming years. It could be something physical, it could be something metaphorical. Kerry, what's an example of something physical that Rob could have thrown in the backpack?
Extra set of teeth.
That's a pretty good one. Hey, is there any idea of a metaphorical thing that we could add to the backpack?
Kindness.
Oh, that's pretty good too. Rob Barnett, what would you add to the backpack, either physical or metaphorical, to give people some success? How are they going to close out like a pro? What are we going to add to this thing?
I've got two. I have two. One is physical. It's real. It's that thing in my life when I'm extra, extra sad and I just need that ounce of little kid happy. It's Pop-Tarts. They got to be in there. They got to be in there. That's my happy med.
What flavor?
What flavor? The flavor is either plain strawberry, not frosted, none of that crap on top. Or if there is crap on top, then the cinnamon, the cinnamon. Those are the two. But my metaphoric is not the actual compass. It's a metaphoric compass that's headed to that place that's north. It's got to be north. I write in chapter 4, there's two crazy things that happen in chapter 4. One is Bob Dylan actually gave us permission to give you a piece of wisdom. That's in chapter 4. And chapter 4 starts out with George Harrison, who spent a day with us at VH1 and played a song that he was only working on that day. It didn't come out till years after he passed. But the song was called Any Road. And the line was, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And I just love that man. I love him. I love him. I love him. So let's head north.
I love him because he gave Monty Python some financing when they needed it very badly, and really kept them alive and well in Britain. Isn't that a great story?
Almost eating a strawberry Pop-Tart right now for Trader Joe's.
That's crazy timing. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I was very fortunate. My dad was a radio DJ growing up, and my mom was too. So that's how they met. We're radio DJ.
My first boyfriend was a DJ.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah,
I was that cool.
Wow. My mom was the sultry nighttime listener request line woman, and my dad was the nerdy morning news guy. But he also had an opinion that the Ventures were going to be better than the Beatles, and we'd all be Ventures fans. But I would say that probably his biggest prediction and the way it turned out was